Hey guys, welcome to the Powerful Man Show, where we help married businessmen save their marriages without having to talk about it, get unstuck, and gain clarity in their lives. As I like to say, life is too short for average. I'm your host, Doug Holt, with my co host, Tim, the Powerful Man Matthews. Now let's get this started.
What's going on, brother?
Very well. My feet are very achy.
Do you have a desk pad for below your desk?
Do you mean like a foot pad that you stand on?
Yep.
Yep, got one.
Yeah.
I usually stand on it, but it started to hurt my knees a little bit, my right knee, so I stopped standing on it all day because I was stood on it all day. But it's from yoga. I've been doing a lot of yoga, so I did it this morning. Quite intense as well. So I think that's what contributed to it.
All right.
Just gripping.
Yep. Gripping with those toes for that balance.
Yeah.
Find your center, son. Find your center. All right, guys. Well, Tim, what we want to talk about today is a topic that comes up a lot in the groups, right? When the men, in the groups that we run with men all over the world, you form a bond and there's an element of safety, right? Where guys are able to share everything about their lives. There's no judgment. And a topic that comes up a lot is a topic I think a lot of guys would be interested in is what constitutes an affair? So in your mind, Tim, I know we've already talked about this a little bit, but beforehand, even when I said, hey, what constitutes an affair, what would be your immediate reaction?
Somebody having sex numerous occasions, intentionally forming a relationship sexually behind their partner's back.
Yeah. And so that's common. That's what I would have said too. However, doing the work that we do, a lot of men call up because either they have had an emotional affair, right? So an affair that starts before intimacy, or their wife or their partner is having an emotional affair. And we see this all the time. And so what I want to talk about is what is that like, right? Because I think a lot of guys, as men especially, we're thinking, hey, we're doing everything right. We're not having an affair, right? We're just flirting a little bit with the girls at the office and the ladies at the gym or whatever it may be. But when you ask women, my wife does a lot of coaching for women, their biggest thing isn't actually the physical affair. What's worse to them is the emotional affair and the emotional aspect of the cheating. So when we look at this and what constitutes an affair, the definition from all the relationship studies that I've done, so what constitutes an affair is putting yourself in a position to be near somebody outside of your relationship to get your needs met, right? And somebody of the opposite sex in particular. So what they mean by that, Tim, I can see you looking at me like, huh? What they mean by that is, if you in particular, let's say as an example, were putting yourself in a position online, like logging into Facebook to make sure you could find another woman there so you could have her laugh at your jokes and have a chuckle, and you're building that relationship. So building a stronger bond is really what I mean. Or maybe it's you start going to the gym, at 9 a.m. because the girl in the red tights is going to be there. And, you're doing that specifically and, you bonded with her over weeks and months. You find yourself being in places and making sure you're in places, maybe your favorite coffee shop or things like that in order to have a deeper connection with that person. That's what constitutes an emotional affair is really seeking that deeper connection that's outside of your relationship. And that's where a lot of people can get in trouble with this slippery slope. Now, a lot of guys that call us up, or come through the program, it's their wife that has had the emotional affair, right? That happens quite a bit where they've found out that their wife has built a relationship with another man for a variety of reasons. A lot of times it's online, sometimes it's at the office or somewhere else. And sometimes that can build into a problem, right? Where the wife is going to leave the relationship or something along those lines. But we also talk to a lot of guys, more guys that don't realize it's an affair and just doing it and their wife's pissed, but are looking outside of their relationship to bond with another woman, to have a deeper connection, to fulfill those areas they feel are not being met inside of their relationship. And this all constitutes, again, an emotional affair. Now, oftentimes emotional affairs build into what you and I would have thought of, right? the physical intimacy, the physical connection, having sex, right? We did a Facebook Live in there, and we're probably gonna talk about it deeper on another podcast. But it's the idea of, you built this relationship with this coworker. We've heard this story a million times. You guys all listening to this probably know a few people that have done this. And you go on that business trip. At the business trip or conference, you've had a couple drinks, and next thing you know, you guys have sealed the deal. You go back to the hotel room and you have sex. And in doing so, that leads to more lies, right? You're lying to your partner, your wife in this case, about what's happening, or she's lied to you. And you've got shame and guilt around it, which causes you to lie even more because you don't want to have shame and guilt, which also causes you to push away from your marriage, right? And this happens all too often. And the guys that have had women have emotional affairs on them, so their wife having an emotional affair online or something, maybe it's an Instagram person or a Facebook person, they report really feeling distance from their partner. Feel like their partner is moving away. Maybe their partner has a new spark, right? And they recognize, wow, she's really excited. She's got more energy. They also realize it's not applying to him. It's kind of a sixth sense, so to speak, on that. So Tim, speak to that a little bit on your experience with the affairs, physical or emotional, and how you've seen that play out.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I used to put a lot of my self-worth on being able to, attract all the girls that typically other guys would want. And even though I was in a relationship, I was younger, but still I knew what I was doing. I knew that it was wrong. And I remember the relationship back then being quite stagnant, and I'd started to, my partner had got a little bit out of shape, and she wasn't the girl she once was, and maybe I did too. Not too sure, but either way, there wasn't. I didn't feel desired within the relationship. I was younger then, so it was definitely a lot more sexually desired. There was a lot of affection, a lot of physical touch, and things like that. But sex has just become less frequent, less often, and less passionate. I think there was a little bit of a trophy element in it for me as well. I wanted to know that I could still do it, right? I wanted to know that I could still get those women, and I wanted to, when those opportunities, I actually say when those opportunities showed up, I actually actively put myself in the position to have the opportunity, right? And there would come a point in every exchange where there was just no return. I know I'd reached a point within myself where the desire had built up that much that I was gonna, it was gonna go down. And we weren't in a sexual position by that point. My friends and I used to joke. We called it Temptation Alley. And you're walking down Temptation Alley, and sometimes you can, walk past the alleyway and look down it and be like, oof, yeah, I'm not going to go down there. Sometimes you're walking down and then you realize, holy crap, I'm turn around and sprint back out of it. And other times I was just running down it. So yeah, I mean, fast forward to today, and I realized that a lot of it for me, part of it came from, like I said, desiring that sexual spark and desire, but also wanting to prove that I still had it. So prove it to myself and prove it to others. And I think that's echoes very similar to a lot of the men I speak with who either have affairs or their wife goes on to have an affair. It's rare that the wives have a sexual affair, to be honest. The wives typically tend to more have an emotional affair with the men that I speak with anyway, whereas the guys tend to be more sexual in their affairs for the most part. And I think regardless of the dynamic of the affair, emotional or sexual, it's interesting because it's the same root, right? Both are wanting to feel connection, both are wanting to feel seen, acknowledged. And for the most part, both of them are being someone in the relationship that they don't want to be. And they know that they are better than this particular version of themselves that has become a pattern within the relationship, right? The guy may have become lazy, stopped dating his wife. He may have got a little bit out of shape. He may have just come home and watch TV and zone out with a beer, and that isn't how he sees himself living. So when that woman starts to take interest, and like you say, she starts laughing at his jokes and starts to remember, you know, or it starts to wake something up within him that he knows is there, but it doesn't get met at home. Then it tends to go down that path, and there's something primal, right? There's needs, and it's interesting. Amir and I have been doing a lot of work around needs the past week or so. And I used to think that being needy in a relationship was a bad thing. It was a sign of weakness. It was a sign of desperation. It was a sign of, you know, I felt like I should be able to meet my own needs without a woman, regardless. And what I've come to learn is there are certain needs that we all have as human beings that can only be met by other human beings. And that's part of the reason why we get into a relationship with other people. And when we actually realized that, when I realized that I'm not a needy guy, I'm not a needy person whatsoever. And when my needs do not get met and I don't communicate it, I then become needy. I become starved, right? I become starved of, for the most part, it's physical affection. I become starved of it, even if, a lot of other needs are being met in the relationship. For most guys, that's the way guys feel loved for the most part. It's through the physical piece. Amelia's just letting Paddy in the room. Interesting. Yeah, so it's through the not a distraction at all, Amelia. Thank you. Yeah, so it's through the physical piece that men tend to feel loved and feel like they appreciated within a relationship, right? So I think when you're able to actually understand what's going on beneath the surface and communicate what realize what needs are not being met, and what are you smirking at, communicate it, it helps a lot, and obviously it can take a little way to get there, but it definitely helps.
I agree. I'm smirking at you're talking about communication. I think you might be getting some subliminal communication or subtle communication being delivered to you at home right now. But we don't want to drift off topic too far. And so we look at this, looking at it, there's a thing called the 7-year itch. I don't know if you're familiar with that, Tim, but there was a movie made about it. It's kind of a popular theory that around 7 years in an intimate relationship, especially in marriage, right, where there's a little more commitment, around that time, people grow apart, right? They start itching to go somewhere else in the relationship, right? They're looking for something outside of themselves. And a lot of times this can happen by not realizing that we've changed. You've changed, your partner's changed, but maybe you haven't checked in. Maybe you have an old version of yourself. And so sometimes this can lead to the affair, right? When you think that you've changed and your needs now aren't getting met, but haven't checked in with your partner, now suddenly the sex has gone down, right? But the office secretary, the new one, the hot one that's down temptation alley, so to speak, like you said, she's laughing at your jokes. She's, complimenting you on the new shirt you have, or your wife didn't even notice, or whatever it may be. And you find yourself lingering around her desk a little bit longer, or the office, or showing up, or talking about movies that she likes and you like, and music, or whatever it may be. You're starting to get into the gray area very fast. And as soon as that happens, that's what, sex experts call a leak in the marriage, right? You start leaking out into this other person, right? So if you can imagine, guys, if you have this sphere of water, maybe it's a bowl of water or something, and imagine that water, that container is full and it's pure, and it's the love that the bond you and your partner have together. And each time you flirt with another woman, for example, like real flirting, or start to go emotionally another way, you are leaking out of that water. There's a little bit of that water gets taken out each time. And of course, it's not a big deal, right? It's a tablespoon here, tablespoon there. Some of you guys are using big friggin' ladles and dumping it on things. But over time, that water in that bowl starts to look empty. It starts to get a little murky too. A little dirt gets thrown in there, right? And soon this whole vessel that is your entity of your relationship is gone. It's evaporated. And it's there. It's hard. And you got to go fill it back up. And you start comparing your wife with the secretary. Well, you don't really know, right? You think you do because you see her at work and she's dressing nice, and she's single or married, she's hot, whatever it may be. I don't know why we always use the secretary, but we do. But they say, comparison is the thief of happiness, right? So if comparison's the thief of happiness, if you're comparing comparing your wife to another woman, it's not fair, right? It's not fair because you don't have the history, you don't have what is going through with her. And this is how these affairs start, right? Maybe you're not doing much. Maybe you're fantasizing about this woman, you're masturbating at home, and that's a leak in the bucket. That's a leak in that vessel. Every time you do that, you are allowing the love, the container that is the honor, respect, privilege of your wife to leak out into somebody else energetically. And that's where a lot of the problems happen. And when that happens, also, your wife knows, right? There's a leak in you. There's a leak in that vessel. She has the same vessel and she's seeing it empty. And that's when she starts going online, checking out what her old high school buddy, sweetheart, is doing. Now, the common thing we hear from the guys, as you know, Tim, is she's cheating on me or she left me for another man. How could she? This guy's a loser. He doesn't make as much money, doesn't have a good job. But the point is he paid attention to her. He looked at her. He did those things and he looked at it. So when we look at this is what is the strength of your commitment in your marriage? And that's the hardest thing. You come to the 7-year itch. Maybe it's 2 for you. Maybe it's the 17-year itch you're going through right now. But what is the strength of your commitment? And so what I have here in front of me are 30 questions, true, false questions, guys. And I'm going to recommend that you just write T or F on a piece of paper. If you're working out at the gym or doing something else, don't worry about it. But I'm going to read through these 30 questions really fast. You can pause and go back. That's the beauty of a show that's evergreen like this. And rate your score. I'm just curious, where you are. So these are just about beliefs and practices related to the strength of your commitment to your partner in your relationship. Now, of course, you could write these down and ask your partner these too. But I'm just talking about you guys because as we know as powerful men, the only thing that we can control is ourselves. So the only thing you can control is yourself, right? So true or false, and I'll read through these, and Tim, you can go through them as well if you want. But just write down T or F, and we can count them at the end. It's easy to do. So I focus more on my partner's faults than on her strengths. So are you always pointing out your partner's faults? Right? Are you always not nagging them, but always telling them what they're doing wrong rather than always looking at their strengths? Really common, right? I have habits of great concern to my partner. For example, drinking, spending, overworking, flirting, displaying anger, right? Do you have those habits of great concern to your partner? Is your wife always telling you you're drinking too much, you're getting angry too much? I'm in a better mood at work than I am at home. Ooh, it's a common one. I am difficult to live with. Don't ask my wife that one. I prefer sharing exciting events with someone other than my partner. I put my own needs before my partner's. I put my own needs before the needs of the relationship. I wouldn't want my partner to know about all the activities I engage in on the computer. We know what those sites you guys are going to. I have romantic fantasies about a person in my life other than my partner. Again, a leak in the bucket. I dress to attract the attention of someone other than my partner. I talk negatively about my partner to others. I would rather spend time with my friends, colleagues than my partner. I have romantic feelings for someone other than my partner. I have sent emails I would not want my partner to read. I get more pleasure from work than from my relationship. Another common one. I have more than one friend that I'm closer to than my partner. I put far more energy into work than into my relationship. I'm nicer to other people than I am to my partner. There's someone who brightens my mood far more than my partner. It feels like my partner and I are growing apart. I am frequently in a bad mood. I get more pleasure from email relationships than from my relationship with my partner. Much of the time I spend with my partner, I am stressed out or exhausted. I'm continually multitasking. It's difficult for my partner to get my undivided attention. I give my hobbies, pastimes more attention than I give my partner. My favorite activities do not include my partner. I leave it up to my partner to keep the excitement going. My life has few high points. Even good events don't make me as happy as I think they should. So what we want to do here, guys, is, write these down and look at the number of truths that you got. Tim, did you do this at all? Or you?
Mentally, yeah, I didn't write them all. I didn't write them all down. I didn't. I think I had one or two truths. I think talking negatively about your partner is it depends what your class is negative. Sometimes I can vent things to you. But I typically look for a solution as well. So that was an interesting one. Email. Sometimes I send some communication to our intimacy coach that I'd rather Amelia not see. So I guess in theory you could say that's a leak, but for the most part, I mean, to be honest, I fantasize about Amelia. I don't dress in a way to impress any of the women. I don't, and I think
That's
a big part of that is because I've done it before, and I know what it takes so little. It's so easy to slip into this cycle. At least for me, it is anyway. So easy, seeing a hot girl in the gym, and
Oh,
that you catch her eye, and she's there a few times. In the past, it would have been so easy for me to just go and jump on the machine next to her, and then before you know it, you've struck up conversation, but you tell yourself it's meaningless and it doesn't matter, and you're just going to see how she is, and you've just been a nice guy, but really underneath it, I know what my motive is. So I just avoid those situations, if there's a sexual charge there, right? I think that's the key thing for me because I like to be I'm quite an open person. Like, last night walking into the local shop and there's two women serving, relatively young. And one woman just was talking about her she got a degree results yesterday. I was on the phone with Amelia, in fact, and I was paying. And she said, "Oh, yes, I got a first." And she was telling a friend, "Oh, wow, you got a first. I only got a 2-2." And so we just chatted for 10 seconds or whatever. But I wouldn't class that as a leak. There wasn't a sexual charge. There was no sexual intent behind it. I just thought, just been nice, right? So, yeah, I'm pleased that I scored well on that. I think if you'd have asked me that 8 years ago, it would have been different. Especially in my previous relationship, where it was a tough one, and my needs were not been met for a long time, and I was a personal trainer. What that's like, right?
we all know as personal trainers.
Yeah, I never actually, overstepped the mark, but get the gist, right? So yeah, I scored well.
Good. So, guys, for the rest of you, it's not a judgment thing, guys. Again, go back to those questions, write it down, true, false, and then count your truths. And the more truths you have, it's going to tell us and you, really, the less committed you are to this relationship. Now, I know some of you guys are like, "Yeah, Doug, but I got 20 truths, but I am so committed to this relationship working." Yeah, but your actions aren't showing that. Huh? Your actions aren't showing it.
I agree, and I want to throw a bit of a curveball as well.
Curve
Maybe
away.
see what you do with it. See if you bat it out of the park. Is it a lack of commitment to the relationship that these guys might have, or is it something else? More like, which I guess you could still argue it comes back into a lack of being committed to the relationship goal. But, in my opinion, for me, a big part of being able to have the conversations with Amelia and have man work to get both of our needs met is being vulnerable and honest, because it was really scary for me at first to communicate to her, what I needed, which sounds crazy, right? But you're revealing such a personal side of yourself to say, hey, look, I need to have more physical touch. I need you to touch me in this way. I need this, I need that, and the other. You know what it's like. You've done the work yourself. So, it takes courage to be able to open up. Logically, it doesn't sound like a big thing, but by default, you've got to understand yourself and understand what your needs are and what's missing from them. And then being able to communicate that in a way whereby you're making it about yourself and not, saying, hey, you don't do this and you don't do the other. It's your. So, I do wonder whether it's a lack of, if you're not willing to do that work, then yeah, you would argue that by default, it's a lack of commitment to the woman you love, right? And maybe also it's a lack of being willing to really go deep with yourself, be real with yourself, which, where else is that showing up?
Well, yeah, I don't really think that's a curveball. I know you're looking at me. Why am I smirking? I'll tell a story later.
You always smirk.
I do always smirk. I have a good time with life. It's not like a commitment, Tim, to me. It's hard to do these things, right? And sometimes it's easier. It's easier to turn to porn than to ask your wife for your sexual fantasy for a lot of guys, right? Because there's so much shame and guilt around sex in most Western cultures and Eastern cultures, for that matter. It's easier to fantasize about the girl at the gym that you're gonna have amazing sex with her, and then she's gonna get up and cook you a healthy meal, and her house is amazing, and it's all easy. It's no arguments, whatever. It's easy to be in this fantasy fake world. It's hard to do these things, and I'm not suggesting. If you're a guy, you're listening to this, and you're like, shit, I got 29 truths. Cool. Now you know where you are. Now you can make a shift. Now you can make a change. I'd rather be the guy that gets 29 truths and realizes it than the guy that has 10 truths in it that really denies it, right? Because you're not living in reality. You can't change from a place that's false. Get those optics, get that clarity, and then you can make a shift. And that's why I think there's just an example questions that I found, right? There's 30 of them. So you can argue all day long if they're valid or not, but that's not the point, right? That's your ego speaking. But really, the point here is doing the work, right? Because I guarantee 90% of the people listening to this won't answer these questions. Right? It's the 10% of those guys that do answer the questions are the guys that get results. We know that time and time again just by doing studies and watching men, right? Performing, high performers. That's the difference. And so look, make changes. Maybe you're not committed. That's cool too. I got no skin in this game, right? I got no skin in the game of your relationship, right? What I'm about is making sure men step into their greatness, become powerful men. This is my legacy work, right? This is the stamp I want to leave on the world, is helping guys out that really are looking for help. And for the rest of you, just go back and make excuses. That's cool. It's your game, right? But there are the ones that are interested. Go back, do those questions, get real and be honest, and then come from a place of shift. Post into the free Facebook group. Reach out, jump on a call with either Tim or one of the specialists that we have, and just have a conversation, right? Guys, it's really that easy. So Tim, as always, I appreciate your vulnerability, your honesty. Patty, thank you also for being here today. Tim's dog.
He's been licking my feet for the past 5 minutes as I've been talking to you.
Nice. Hey, get your needs met. Getting your needs met.
Yeah, I do wonder why Amelia just walks up and, opens the door and lets him in and just leaves.
That's funny. But, talk to her about it, right? The reason I was smirking is you said, I'm going to throw you a curveball, and it brought me back. This is a total aside for the guys, but we were at an alpha reset on the East Coast of the United States in winter. So snow everywhere if you've never been there. And as it happens with a group of men, and these are all grown men, well, physically grown men, I would say, and a bond is formed by the guys that go through this. There were guys all over the world there, guys from the United States and UK mostly. And a spontaneous snowball fight broke out. And it ended up being, no, it wasn't. Mostly it was the coaches at first against the participants, and then it kind of got a divide, and it ended up in a place where it was a lot of the US guys against the UK guys. And both groups equally athletic, right? To the most part, right? And then one of the
to win.
Everybody wanted to win and hit each other with these snowballs. It was a blast. We have a lot of fun and a lot of giggling. But what made me smirk, because you said I'm going to throw you a curveball, is I've seen you throw. I'm not worried.
Yeah.
But we realized quickly that one of the guys from the UK, I won't say his name, but he's like, gosh, how come all these Americans throw so hard and accurately? Well, we grew up with baseball. As you guys grew up with football, playing, so we call soccer for everybody. But every American boy grows up playing baseball, throwing things. So throwing things fast, hard, and accurately is something that comes natural. So Tim, thank you again, as always, for being vulnerable and authentic, as you tend to do. Gentlemen, we will see you next time on The Powerful Man Show.
All right, guys, that's a wrap for this episode. But as I always say, in the moment of insight, take massive action. You see, there are two types of men that listen to a podcast like this. Those that go on from one podcast or show to another, just hoping things are going to change and realizing that they're going to be in the same place month after month, year after year. You see, I was this guy, so I completely get it. You may just not be ready. But there's also a second man that listens to a show just like this. And this is a guy who takes massive action so they can shorten the learning curve, compress time, and get results to be the wolf. See, wolf is an acronym for wise, open, loving, and fierce. Now, ask yourself, which one am I? And just be honest with yourself there. And there's no judgment on my end, but if you're ready to move from deactivated deer mode, which is defend, excuse, explain, react, to activated wolf, wise, open, loving, and fierce, then go over to thepowerfulman.com/grow and go there now. In fact, I'll make it super easy for you. I will even put the link right in the description here so you can just click it and go over there now to learn more. Guys, in the moment of insight, take massive action. Go from deactivated to activated because like I said, life is too short for average. And I'll see you on the next episode.